What if the pandemic never ended? What if every time humanity caught its breath, another deadlier strain hit? Faster, smarter, more evasive. Imagine a world where lockdowns weren't a phase, but a permanent lifestyle. Welcome to the year 2030, where COVID never let go. It began like any other flu season. Just one more variant. Mild, they said. But this one slipped past every vaccine, and the one after that, even worse. By 2024, the virus had outpaced our science. It wasn't just mutating, it was evolving in real time. Antibodies faded in weeks. Boosters became monthly rituals. Global hope collapsed into a cold, viral reality. As 2030 dawns, the world is 7 years deep into an endless pandemic. Borders don't just close temporarily, they seal. Entire cities are redesigned as viral fortresses. Nations pour trillions into viral containment, not warfare. Hospitals are war zones. Economies swing between recovery and relapse. People live in fear of air, touch, and even each other. This isn't a new normal. This is a new forever. But how did we get here? And what does survival look like when the enemy isn't a country or ideology, but the air itself? Let's step into a reality where the virus never loosened its grip, and the world kept spiraling just to keep breathing. The year is 2030, and the world is no longer asking, when will this end? It stopped asking altogether. COVID-19 has become an unrelenting shadow over humanity, constantly shifting, evading, and adapting. By 2025, the virus had mutated beyond the reach of any stable vaccine. Strains no longer circulated in annual waves. They overlapped, surged unpredictably, and targeted different systems in the human body. The virus that once mimicked the flu now evolved like malware, constantly rewriting its genetic code to breach our defenses. Public health strategies shifted from eradication to endless adaptation. The WHO transformed into a 24/7 crisis command center. Emergency meetings weren't rare. They were the norm. Every week brought new mutations. The Singapore strain, the Lagos loop, the Buenos Aires burn. Each had its own symptoms, transmission patterns, and lethality curve. Medical journals couldn't publish fast enough. Frontline responders had to update protocols in real time, often during outbreaks themselves. The term flatten the curve became an artifact of the past. The new global mantra: survive the cycle. Citizens memorized the names of variant families like hurricanes. Red zones, yellow zones, mutation alerts, they appeared on apps, billboards, even household smart mirrors. Risk awareness became a second language, spoken before people asked, "How are you?" Governments instituted rolling lockdowns. Entire cities would shudder overnight, with sirens signaling viral spikes the way air raid alerts once warned of bombs. Kids grew up with isolation drills instead of fire drills. Mask mandates didn't lift, they evolved. What began as cloth became N99 filtration domes, facial shields with embedded diagnostics, even respiratory exosuits for high-risk individuals. Public behavior reshaped. People didn't just avoid crowds, they avoided conversations. Speech in public became minimal, and social interactions were performed with choreographed distance. Elbow bumps were outdated. Now, people bowed slightly or just made eye contact. A new etiquette of silence and separation emerged, reducing every interaction to a strategic calculation of risk. And yet, even in this world of swirling mutation and isolation, life continued, but not as we remember it. Because while the virus mutated endlessly, it was the global healthcare system that faced the most brutal transformation, and not all of it survived. By 2030, the global healthcare system is no longer a system, it's a battlefield. Hospitals have been repurposed into permanent emergency installations. ERs never clear out. ICUs run at 150% capacity year-round. And triage tents stretch into parking lots, parks, and even abandoned malls. The idea of a non-pandemic patient has nearly vanished. Every case is treated as potentially viral until proven otherwise. From prenatal care to oncology, every corner of medicine has been reshaped under the looming threat of mutation. Medical staff no longer work standard shifts. They operate on emergency rotation cycles designed to minimize exposure and burnout. Every doctor, nurse, and technician now has a personal infection ledger, a digital log tracking exposures, immunity windows, and viral resistance levels. If you've had 3 strains this year, you're assigned to less risky wards. If you're clean, straight to the front line. Burnout isn't just emotional, it's physical. The average frontline nurse in 2030 lasts only 6 months before requesting reassignment. Suicide rates among medical professionals have tripled. Many now wear full biometric monitoring suits, not just to protect from the virus, but to alert their supervisors if they're on the verge of collapse. In response to the overwhelming demand, nations turn to automation. AI handles diagnostics, triage, and even some surgeries. Robotic nurses roam hospital corridors, administering medication and reading vitals. Some emergency response drones are programmed to deliver oxygen tanks and antivirals directly to homes, especially in hard-hit regions under strict quarantine. But automation is a double-edged sword. In poorer regions where these technologies are unaffordable, communities rely on volunteer medics and homegrown biohacks. Some ingenious, some dangerous. Black market antivirals, DIY respirators, and underground treatment clinics flourish. As the official systems bend under pressure, the cracks become breeding grounds for corruption, counterfeit meds, and viral experimentation. Even education in medicine has shifted. Medical school now includes mutation management, pandemic ethics, and long-haul trauma studies as core subjects. Simulations for variant outbreaks are run in real-time environments, where students train alongside soldiers and disaster specialists. Healthcare has become synonymous with emergency response, perhaps the most heartbreaking shift. Death has been normalized. Families don't grieve as they once did. Funerals are often virtual, and memorials have become digital archives. Loss is so frequent that mourning itself is now scheduled, compartmentalized, and often suppressed in the name of survival. In this reality, medicine isn't about healing, it's about containment, endurance, and managing the slow-motion collapse of a species under siege. But no system collapses in isolation. What buckled next was the very lifeblood of civilization, the global economy. The economy didn't crash overnight, it bled out over years. The first to fall were small businesses. Family-run restaurants, corner stores, and local gyms became relics of a pre-mutational world. Lockdown after lockdown made continuity impossible. Even digital pivoting wasn't enough. By 2026, corporate consolidation hit an all-time high. 5 mega-conglomerates controlled nearly 80% of global commerce. From food to pharmaceuticals. If you needed something, odds were it came from a company that once didn't exist before the pandemic. Supply chains weren't just strained, they were militarized. Cargo wasn't about convenience anymore. It was about survival. Countries nationalized their logistics networks. Containers with antiviral shipments traveled in convoys flanked by armed escorts. Global ports resembled war zones. Drones scanned for biohazards, while special decontamination zones processed every package. Piracy made a comeback, except now it wasn't gold or oil they were after. It was respirators and rare viral inhibitors. The idea of a stable job disappeared. Work from home morphed into live at work. Entire industries moved into isolated work colonies, biosecure complexes where employees lived full. Time to ensure zero exposure. Others worked under hazard contracts where PE was high, but life expectancy was short. As the private sector convulsed, governments intervened with sweeping economic overhauls. In many nations, basic income became standard, at first as a temporary stimulus, then as a survival guarantee. People received monthly credits, not just for food or shelter, but for staying isolated. Rationing returned. Digital coupons replaced currency in most essential services. Barter economies flourished in offline regions, while black markets dominated in lockdown, saturated zones. Cryptocurrencies surged. With traditional banks overwhelmed and physical transactions risky, decentralized finance became the go-to for millions. Blockchain-based health tokens, pandemic futures markets, and viral prediction bonds became new pillars of speculative trade. Entire economies revolved around viral statistics. But wealth, as always, found a way to concentrate. A new class of pandemic billionaires rose. Biotech moguls, digital platform tycoons, and real estate barons who owned the quarantine, safe housing complexes. The rest of the world, they either adapted or faded. One particularly grim economic innovation was the risk-tier employment model. People with antibodies, natural immunity, or a strong recovery record were fast tracked into dangerous but vital work. Sanitation squads, viral cleanup teams, and bio-shipment handlers. These were the new elite laborers, well-paid, high-risk, and often short-lived. This economy wasn't just unstable, it was alive, mutating, reacting to each new wave of infection, like an organism evolving under threat. Supply and demand no longer governed trade, viral behavior did. Yet even as economies twisted into survival mode, it was our personal lives, our culture, and our connections to each other that underwent the most haunting transformation. By 2030, human behavior doesn't resemble what it once was. Touch, presence, and proximity, once the foundations of society, have become calculated risks. The very essence of social interaction has been rewritten by fear and necessity. Handshakes are now a myth. Hugs are ceremonial, performed only between co-isolated family units during rare physical reunions. Instead, people greet each other through gesture. Based protocols developed to communicate emotion without touch, hand symbols, nodding sequences, or color. Coded lead badges on clothing that signal one's health status and willingness to engage. Masks, once debated and discarded, are now permanent fashion items, customized with built. Infiltration systems, voice modulators, and emotion, projection displays. Children grow up designing their own face skins as part of their identity. Facial recognition is obsolete. Everyone lives behind a digital facade, physically protected and socially disguised. Dating and intimacy. Virtual first. Touch-based relationships are now considered long-term commitments requiring trust contracts. Medical transparency and weeks of mutual quarantine before physical interaction. First base has been redefined to mean shared biometric data. Schools have gone fully digital for most regions. Students attend via immersive VR platforms designed to replicate classroom energy without exposure risk. Some high-end education facilities feature biosphere-style campuses, sealed, heavily regulated, and accessible only to the wealthy. Childhood socialization now happens inside controlled virtual environments, where AI moderators ensure no inappropriate viral risk behavior is simulated, even in play. Religious practices have changed as well. Mass gatherings are outlawed in many nations. Faith traditions have adapted, replacing pilgrimages and rituals with live stream ceremonies. Digital sacraments, and even faith apps offering daily prayers based on personal viral risk scores. Some sects see the virus as divine punishment. Others view viral immunity as spiritual purity. Workplace culture has undergone a total rebirth. Offices are obsolete for most industries. Collaboration takes place across time zones through persistent digital avatars and productivity environments, optimized for different sleep cycles and viral activity windows. Coworkers may spend years on the same team and never meet in person. Even holidays have shifted. Instead of travel and celebration, they're days of quiet reflection or community digital hangouts. COVIDversary is now globally observed each March to honor those lost and to release annual mutation forecasts from global bioagencies. Events as widely viewed as New Year's Eve once was. Pop culture, too, reflects this new reality. Blockbuster films are now pandemic-themed dramas or simulation-based storytelling designed to explore alternate realities where the virus ended or never began. Nostalgia dominates entertainment. The longing for unmasked kisses, crowded concerts, and the innocence of coughing without fear. Social etiquette has fully adapted. Sneezing in public without a mask is grounds for expulsion or arrest. Public hygiene displays, sanitizing, changing outerwear, applying antiviral sprays are not just normal, but expected. Going out involves passing health checkpoints, scanning QR-based clearance codes, and submitting to real-time breath analysis. Humanity has adapted, impressively so. But this adaptation has come at a price, a form of cultural sterilization where spontaneity, chaos, and unfiltered human connection have been sanitized out of existence. And while the outside world changed dramatically, the internal damage, emotional, psychological, and spiritual, was even more devastating. While the world raced to contain the virus, a quieter pandemic spread beneath the surface, one of grief, numbness, and psychological decay. By 2030, the mental health landscape is unrecognizable. Anxiety isn't a disorder anymore, it's baseline existence. Nearly every human alive has lived under some level of persistent lockdown or restriction for over a decade. And the cumulative toll has carved deep scars across every generation. The World Health Organization now classifies a formal condition, chronic pandemic stress disorder, CPSD. Its symptoms include hypervigilance, compulsive sterilization behavior, isolation dependency, and a flattened emotional response to death. CPSD isn't just a diagnosis, it's the new human default. Children born after 2020 have never known a world without viral sirens, social distancing, or face shields. They grow up in sanitized pods, taught to fear unfiltered air and direct contact. Social learning delays are rampant. Entire cohorts struggle with facial recognition, physical empathy, and real-world conversational cues. These COVID-native children form attachments through screens and avatars before forming them with people. Young adults, particularly those who were teenagers during the first waves, carry complex trauma. They lost rites of passage, graduations, first kisses, formative friendships, to rolling lockdowns. Many experience dissociative behavior, unable to process time linearly. Some refer to the early 2020s as the blur. Others avoid discussing it entirely. Exit rates reached unprecedented levels by 2027, leading governments to install digital mental health kiosks in residential zones, offering real-time counseling, medication, and emergency response. But demand far outpaced supply, and the normalization of emotional suppression took hold. In many cultures, discussing one's mental state became taboo, seen as a liability, a weakness, or worse, a potential cause for mandatory quarantine. Trust in institutions fractured along fault lines. People blamed governments, scientists, each other. Populations polarized into hyper-compliant citizens who followed every protocol without question, and defiant nihilists who saw no value in continuing the charade of prevention. These groups rarely mix, deepening social divides into psychological ones. Religiosity either collapsed or exploded. Many lost faith in higher powers, struggling to reconcile endless suffering with divine will. Others embraced radical new doctrines, often centered around purity, health, or viral transcendence. Cults flourished, some claiming that full viral infection was the path to enlightenment, or that mutation signaled evolutionary rebirth. A darker phenomenon emerged around 2028: COVID nihilism. This wasn't just denial or rebellion, it was a deliberate surrender. Individuals, tired of the isolation, fear, and monotony, sought out infection. Some streamed their decisions to go raw, removing all protection, entering red zones, and rejecting treatment. Many died. Others survived with lifelong damage. But to them, the risk was preferable to a life half-lived in sterile silence. The arts turned bleak. Music, painting, literature, once tools for hope and resistance, now leaned into dystopia, mourning, and decay. Joy became a revolutionary act. Laughter was rare. Celebration was suspect. In this world, the greatest loss wasn't freedom, touch, or routine. It was the quiet erosion of the human spirit. Not with a scream, but with a long, suffocating sigh. But amid all the darkness, one force rose above all others, growing in influence, funding, and control: the viral containment complex. As the world plunged deeper into viral chaos, one industry didn't just survive, it thrived. By 2030, biotech, viral prediction, and containment technology dominate the global power structure. Governments bow to them, economies orbit around them, and society is governed by their data. The pharmaceutical giants of the early 2020s evolved into sprawling, militarized corporations. Their R&D labs are as secure as nuclear bunkers. These aren't just companies anymore. They are states within states. Their products aren't pills or syringes. They control access to life itself. Breakthroughs come weekly. Inhalable mRNA therapies, variant-specific nanobots, wearable viral monitors that scan your breath for mutational anomalies. Every citizen has a BioID, a real-time health passport synced to cloud diagnostics. Want to enter a city sector, apply for a job, or use public transport? Your BioID must be greenlit. If your viral status turns ambiguous, even without symptoms, you're instantly flagged, quarantined, and investigated. This isn't surveillance in the traditional sense. It's medical governance. The boundary between health and law has dissolved. Entire nations now have infection response divisions, elite task forces trained to detect, detain, and decontaminate. They operate like a hybrid of paramedics, soldiers, and epidemiologists. In red zones, these agents are both protectors and enforcers. Entire cities have been redesigned. Smart filtration, skyscrapers, auto-sealing transit pods, and underground quarantine bunkers are standard features. Urban sprawl has reversed. Density is dangerous. Instead, society favors modular bio-safe zones, interconnected by sterilized corridors and monitored air currents. Even the home has changed. New housing developments come with built-in UV air sterilizers, negative pressure bedrooms, and pathogen detection glass. Real estate listings no longer advertise schools or shopping. They advertise containment ratings and immunity walls. Geopolitically, viral containment is the new arms race. Nations don't measure power by nukes or satellites. They measure it by sequencing speed, mutation response time, and antiviral stockpile levels. Vaccine diplomacy has become the new foreign policy. Trade routes are secured in exchange for immunity deals. And regional alliances form around coordinated health infrastructure rather than ideology. And the people. They're divided between those who embrace containment as salvation and those who see it as a prison. Underground resistance movements have begun to form. It's calling for the dismantling of the BioID system and a return to risk-based freedom. Some even claim the corporations are allowing mutations to persist, feeding the cycle to sustain profit and power. Whether that's paranoia or truth is irrelevant. The reality is this: humanity no longer controls the pandemic. The pandemic controls the architecture of civilization, and the ones managing it are no longer elected leaders, but viral engineers and predictive AI systems. This isn't just a new phase of the pandemic, it's a new environment. A world where disease doesn't just threaten life, it defines it. By 2030, COVID is no longer referred to as a virus. It is the climate of human existence. Just as ancient civilizations shaped their lives around the rhythms of the sun and rain, the modern world now revolves around the fluctuation of viral trends. Infection maps have replaced weather forecasts. Bio-alerts replace morning news. And public attention cycles are dictated not by politics or celebrity scandals, but by the rise and fall of variant clusters across the globe. Diplomacy, once about war and trade, has become a matter of viral coordination. International summits are now hybrid events, part political negotiation, part outbreak management. Nations don't threaten one another with military might, but with data, leaks about unreported outbreaks, evidence of delayed mutation disclosures, or proof of antiviral hoarding. Global trust is fragile, but vital. A single misinformation event about a new strain can crash markets or cause panic migrations. Migration itself has been redefined. Borders still exist, but now as layers of filtration. Travel involves weeks of prep, full-body pathogen scans, pre-quarantine protocols, and immunogenetic profiling. The elite travel via sterilized sky corridors, ultra-regulated flight paths operated by containment, certified airlines. Everyone else moves slowly, carefully, and with government approval. The entertainment world has fully virtualized. Stadiums, festivals, and large-scale gatherings are extinct in their original form. Instead, people gather in immersive digital arenas where AI-simulated crowds replicate the buzz of being surrounded, without the risk. Sports exist, but the players are isolated in viral domes and their interactions tightly controlled. The public cheers from a distance, often behind avatars. The spectacle remains. The presence does not. Religious life is reshaped into global spiritual networks, with VR churches, synagogues, and mosques offering safe rituals across time zones. Pilgrimages are symbolic now, performed through proxy or through AI-driven simulations. Faith becomes both globalized and internalized. New sects emerge that revere the virus itself, not as an enemy, but as a force that purged weakness, revealing humanity's resilience. Education no longer takes place in classrooms, not even virtual ones alone. Children are taught pandemic history as the core of all other learning. Viral literacy is as essential as reading and math. Schools function more like long-term care facilities. Isolated learning pods monitored for mental health, socialization levels, and immune strength. Meanwhile, art and creativity pivot toward themes of survival, loss, and adaptation. A new movement, contagion expressionism, emerges in music, film, and literature. Its central message: this is not tragedy. This is metamorphosis. Even personal identity is shaped by the pandemic. People identify by strain history, immunity profile, or mutation resistance. Dating profiles feature viral exposure timelines. Friendships are maintained across digital platforms with viral compatibility filters. Closeness is emotional, not physical. And perhaps most disturbingly, many don't want to go back. A generation has been raised under rules that taught them that pre-2020 society was reckless, chaotic, and unsustainable. To them, the new world isn't dystopia, it's order. It's safer, cleaner, controlled. The virus didn't just change society, it defined what society would become. So, in a world reshaped, regulated, and ruled by an endless virus, what future, if any, remains for the human spirit? In this alternate 2030, COVID-19 never faded. It never became background noise. Instead, it became the air we breathe, the space we fear, the system that governs us. Healthcare stopped healing and started triaging. Economies stopped growing and started mutating. Society stopped gathering and started isolating. And humanity, once driven by connection, adapted to a life designed around distance. We built new cities, not of ambition, but of containment. We raised children, not for exploration, but for preservation. And we redefined progress, not by freedom, but by survival. The unending pandemic didn't just challenge our systems, it rewrote them. It exposed the fragility of our old normal and forced us to engineer a new one where uncertainty is a permanent feature, not a temporary bug. But this reality raises a haunting question. Can a species truly thrive when its every move is dictated by fear? Can culture, creativity, and love endure in a world built to suppress risk at all costs? Or have we, in saving ourselves from a virus, infected our very essence with something far more lasting? Compliance without question, isolation without end. Because in this world, the virus didn't kill humanity. It simply tamed it. What would you do if the pandemic never ended? Could you live in a world where every breath is a calculation, every hug a gamble? If this vision of the future shook you, fascinated you, or made you rethink how fragile our reality is, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon for more deep dive explorations into alternate worlds and terrifying what-ifs. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Would you adapt? Would you resist? Or would you rather risk it all for the world we used to know?